At 11:42 p.m., Gate B10 pulsed with the blue light that makes everyone look tired. My daughter slept across two plastic seats with her pink backpack as a pillow, her stuffed giraffe tucked under her chin. I was counting the minutes to midnight because that was when the airline would admit our red-eye to Phoenix wasn't delayed. It was canceled. A man sat 2 chairs away from me. Gray suit, black carry-on. Hands folded like he was holding water he didn't want to spill. He tried to breathe quietly and failed. I heard the crack in it. I looked down at my list because that's how I keep my balance. I keep a Navy binder in my tote. It has tabs for rent, daycare, utilities, work, car, medical. Tonight the binder held printed emails from my manager about pooled tips, a 3-day notice from the landlord that wasn't legal, and a payment plan I had set up with the pediatric dentist. I highlight due dates in yellow and circle lies in red. The man made a sound that wasn't a cough. He pressed his thumb to his eye so hard it left a white crescent. "You okay?" I asked, because I have learned that sometimes the smallest question is a rope. He didn't look at me. "I'm fine." His voice was steady, but it wore a mask. "You're not," I said, "but you can be anonymous." Airports are good for that. I slid a travel pack of tissues across the seats. He stared at it like no one had ever given him something without a receipt attached. He took one. He didn't blow his nose. He just held the tissue like it was a pass to breathe. "My name is Maya," I said. "That's Lily." I nodded at my sleeping daughter. "We're standing by for a flight that isn't coming." He nodded. "I'm Ethan." He didn't offer a last name. He didn't need to. His hands did a small tremor and then went still. "Everything I built is gone," he said softly, and the words fell between us like glass. I didn't ask what he had built. I didn't ask how it was gone. I said, "That hurts? Sit with it, then get some water." He gave me a look like a person who has always been in rooms where solutions come with invoices. He walked to the fountain and returned with a paper cup. He sat back down. He looked at Lily. "How old?" "5, I said. She likes giraffes, snacks that come in tiny bags, and checking things off lists. I get the third part from her." He smiled the first real smile of the night. It didn't reach his eyes, but it tried. "You work in the terminal?" he asked. "Restaurant on 45th, I said. I was at the airport to get a cheap standby seat. "My mom's surgery is tomorrow at St. Joseph's in Phoenix. The red eye was our plan. It's how single moms fly. I'm sorry," he said. "For the surgery. For the flight." "Thank you," I said. "What about you?" He looked at the departures board like it owed him an answer. "I just left a room with 12 people. 11 of them voted no confidence. The 12th was me. They took it all in an hour. They had the numbers and the paper ready." "I'm sorry," I said again, because grief is grief, even when it wears an expensive watch. "Did you build something that has your name on the door?" He shook his head once. "No. I built something big enough that my name didn't have to be on it." He rubbed at a scuff on his carry-on with his thumb. "It turns out you can lose a thing you created if you trust the wrong person with a pen." "A pen is a powerful tool," I said. "So is a file folder." He noticed my binder. "You keep records." "I keep receipts," I said. "It's how I stay standing." He looked like he wanted to ask, so I told him, because it was late and the blue light makes truth easy. "The landlord put a convenience fee on my rent this month. $200. No clause in the lease." He taped a 3-day notice to the door anyway, printed from a template he found online. "My manager at the restaurant skims from the tip pool. He calls it a breakage adjustment. He thinks we're too tired to add. And my ex—" I paused and breathed. "Trevor thinks child support is optional when the Seahawks play. So I keep records. I keep a calendar where his missed payments line up with game days." I keep screenshots. When I walk into a room, I bring more paper than they do. Ethan listened without interrupting. The airport announcement thanked us for our patience in a voice that never had to wait for anything. Is the notice legal? He asked. No, I said. Seattle requires 14 days, and he has to cite a real reason. I went to the tenants union clinic last Tuesday. They gave me the RCW number, the sample letter, the words you write so they know you know. And the tips? I started taking photos of the tip summary at close. I write down cash out totals. I keep the POS tickets when I can. He says it's busy work. I say it's math. Ethan nodded like a person who has sat through audits. What do you want? A quiet life, I said. A clean lease. A transparent tip pool. The co-parenting app to work because text messages disappear when it's convenient for him. What will you do? File, always file. The Office of Labor Standards has a form for tips. The housing counselor has a template for notices. The court has a clerk who stamps things. My revenge, I said, is paper. He looked at me like the word made sense for the first time. People think revenge is fireworks. Mine is a clipboard. Lily stirred and rolled toward me. Her giraffe fell. Ethan caught it and placed it back under her arm with the care of a person who used to be careful and forgot how. Thank you, I said, for the giraffe assist. He nodded. He looked at his phone and then turned it face down like he didn't owe it attention anymore. At 12:03 a.m., the airline announced the cancellation like it was a new idea. People groaned. A few yelled. A line formed fast. I checked Lily's shoes and zippered her jacket without waking her. I swung my tote over my shoulder. Do you have a place to go? I asked him. He looked at the board again. Yes. He didn't move. Then go, I said, and I made my voice kind. Drink water. Make a list. Put the list in a folder. Don't call anyone who said no confidence. Call the lawyer who taught you not to talk. He gave a soft laugh at that line. It sounded like a memory. Thank you, Maya. You're welcome, Ethan. He stood. He collected his carry-on. He looked like a building after an earthquake, still upright, a little cracked, stronger than it knew. He walked away without looking back. Lily and I took our place in the line of tired people who needed hotel vouchers and apologies. We got a voucher that didn't cover the Uber to the hotel. I did the math, then shrugged because sometimes you pay twice to move once. We got to a place with carpet that tried to look like art and failed. I put Lily in one of the two small beds and set my phone on the nightstand. I opened the binder and slid the voucher into a new pocket. Keep everything. Sleep came like the friend who knocks and doesn't wait for an answer. By 7:10 a.m., we were home. Lily ate dry cereal in her pajamas while I checked my email. The airline pushed our flight to 2:05 p.m. I called the hospital and told the pre-op nurse that we were trying. She said, "We'll hold her chart at the front." My mother hates hospitals but hates when I apologize more. She texted me a photo of her hand giving a thumbs up. The fourth tape had a sunflower on it. I smiled and saved it. I printed the landlord letter, the one with the statute and the date. I slid it into a manila envelope and wrote his name in block letters. I have learned that block letters make people think you mean it. Lily put her giraffe in my tote and said, "He wants to go to the mailbox." "He can come," I said. We walked to the management office. The door set open. The air inside smelled like lemon cleaner and new carpet. Mr. Adler sat behind a desk with a bowl of mints and a smile that didn't reach his eyes. "Morning, Maya," he said. "About your rent." "Here is my letter," I said, placing it flat, centered. I don't slide documents across desks. I set them down so they land like quiet gavels. Your 3-day notice is defective. You can rescind it in writing or we can discuss it with the city. He read the first line. He didn't like being given homework in his own office. "It's a standard notice," he said. Everyone uses it. Everyone who doesn't read the law, I said. I brought a second copy for your file. I set it beside the mints. Have a good day, Mr. Adler. I left before he could practice being offended. Lily and I stopped for coffee and hot chocolate. The barista wrote giraffe on the sleeve without asking. We walked past the restaurant where I roll silverware and memorize specials. I looked at the schedule posted in the window. The manager had added me for a double on Saturday with no text. He does this because he thinks my time is elastic. I took a photo with the date and time stamp on. Then I opened my phone notes and typed a line. Schedule changed without consent Saturday. Double added. Photo attached. Then I attached it. Keep everything. At 11:20 a.m., my phone lit up with a news alert. The photo showed Ethan in a different suit with a different watch. The headline said, Cole ousted from Helios Logistics in surprise board vote. There was a second line, CFO under internal review. I read the article twice. I learned his last name. I learned that he started the company in a one-room office in Tukwila with 2 trucks and a spreadsheet. I learned that growth is not the same as safety. I didn't text him. I didn't have his number. And even if I did, I wouldn't have used it. People deserve to choose who hears them after they break. I closed the article and checked the time. 12:05 p.m. I opened the app and ordered a rideshare to the airport. We made our flight by 5 minutes. Lily pressed her face to the window like Phoenix was a secret you could see from the sky. My mother smiled through pain when we walked into pre-op at 5:23 p.m. The sunflower tape now had 2 flowers. You made it, she said, like she didn't doubt it for a second. I stayed all night in a chair that was designed to punish the tired. I wrote a list labeled, After. It had 6 items. Call Office of Labor Standards. Return call to housing counselor. Upload photos of tip summaries. Print co-parenting ledger. Oil change. Buy sunflower seeds for Lily's school garden. I fell asleep at 3:06 a.m. with the binder open on my lap. The next 2 weeks were a rhythm. Hospital, Lily's school, work, documents. My mother came home with a neat incision and a stubborn will. I cooked chicken soup from a recipe on a crumpled card. I sent the tip pool complaint with attachments on a Wednesday at 8:12 p.m. The auto reply said, Thank you for your submission. I took a photo of the auto reply and slid it into the binder because even acknowledgments are receipts. On Friday, the housing counselor called. Your letter did its job, she said. Have you received a rescission? Not yet, I said. Give it until Monday. If he doesn't rescind, we'll file with the city. Her voice was calm and brisk. I like calm and brisk. They sound like clean floors and clear light. On Sunday, Trevor texted at 9:47 a.m. Can't make drop-off. Game day. Let's switch, I replied in the co-parenting app. Drop-off times are in the order. See you at 5. He replied, You always make it hard. I typed, I follow the order, and hit send. At 5:20 p.m., he arrived late with a bag of chips, and the look he wears when he wants applause for showing up. I signed the exchange log and handed him the calendar with Lily's school events. They all start at 6, I said. If you can't make it, let me know 48 hours ahead so I can arrange childcare for my shift. He shrugged. We'll see. I smiled the smile I use when I'm tired of explanations. We will. I closed the door and wrote down the pickup time, the comments, the shrug. Keep everything. On Monday at 10:03 a.m., Mr. Adler taped a new letter to my door. It said, rescission. It used small words because small words are harder to wriggle around. I took a photo before I pulled it down. I sent the photo to the housing counselor with a thank you. She replied with a thumbs up and a sentence I copied into my notes. Landlords get careful when tenants get specific. I went to work with an extra breath in my chest. The lunch rush was loud and ordinary. Tourists wanted salmon. Regulars wanted their usual. I wanted the math to line up. At 3:30 p.m., I watched the manager take cash out of the drawer and write breakage on a sticky note. I watched him not order the new tip jar I had asked for. I watched him not post the tip report where anyone could see it. I wrote down times and names and pulled the tip summary at close. I folded it and slid it into my apron and then into the binder on my kitchen counter at 11:12 p.m. That night, after Lily fell asleep with a new library book open on her face, I read another article about Helios Logistics. The board chair said words like fiduciary duty and strategic direction. The CFO had resigned to spend more time with family. I know what that sentence means. It means someone found a drawer full of papers they weren't supposed to keep. The article said the company would reaffirm its commitment to ethical practices. It said nothing about the people who work the docks at 3 in the morning or the drivers who swap out shifts behind a warehouse. It said nothing about the single mom who poured water for 12 tables while a manager counted out the jar too close to his chest. I closed my laptop and went to the window. Seattle glowed like it was always a holiday. I breathed in the city's smell of rain and coffee and buses that run late and still come. On Thursday, I got an email from the Office of Labor Standards. Subject line, follow-up request, tip pool documentation. I printed it and the attachment list. They asked for 30 days of tip records, the written policy, names of supervisory staff who had access to the pool, and any communications where the manager referenced breakage. I had 28 days of records because 2 nights the printer jammed. I wrote "see photo" next to those days and attached the images from my phone. I added the schedule photos to show when shifts and tip-outs moved like shells in a street game. I wrote a short cover letter in simple words. The tip pool is not transparent. We are not given full reports. I am attaching what I have. I will collect more. I signed my name in block letters. I dropped the envelope in the blue box on the corner at 7:42 a.m., then texted my coworker Jess, who has 2 kids and a laugh that makes the room warmer. Filed, I wrote. She sent 3 fire emojis and then, about time. I don't measure justice in heat. I measure it in stamps. By Friday evening, I had a stack of shift notes and a new problem. The car made a sound like a jar of pennies on a washboard. The check engine light blinked once, then decided to stay. I called my mechanic Gus, who works out of a garage that smells like honesty and oil. Bring it in tomorrow, he said. We'll look. No promises on Saturday, but I'll try. Thank you, I said. I meant it. The next morning at 9:05, I was filling out the intake sheet in Gus's office when a man walked in wearing a cap and a sweatshirt with the sleeves pushed up. It took me 3 seconds to realize it was Ethan. Not the suit. Not the watch. The way he stood, like he knew exactly how many exits were in the room. He saw me at the same time. A flicker of recognition, then something like relief. Maya, he said. Hi. He held up a coffee cup. Gus's place has the worst coffee in the city. I brought my own. Gus stuck his head out from the bay. Cole, he said, like saying hello to a regular. Ethan lifted his cup. Don't worry. I'm not here to fix yours. Good, Gus said, because you always bring a storm. Trying to bring less of those, Ethan said, then turned to me. How's your mom? Home, I said. Stubborn. Healing. Good, he said. He looked like a person who had been awake for all the minutes between our last conversation and now, clean, but thin around the eyes. And your landlord? Rescinded, I said. And your manager? Filed, I said. His mouth did the small smile again. You said your revenge is paper. I did, I said. How's your storm? He exhaled slowly. The board has what it wants. I have a lawyer who likes mornings and rules. The CFO has a problem named audit. I have time I never had before and a lot of people calling with advice I didn't ask for. What do you want? I asked, borrowing his question back. He didn't answer quickly. He looked past me at the open bay where Gus worked, where the lift raised someone's Honda, where work looked like work. I want to build something that doesn't forget the people who move it, he said. I forgot. Not all the way. But enough Gus called my name. Maya? You're losing coolant, water pump's shot. Belt 2. He gave me the number. It was not small. I did the math automatically and watched 2 lines cross. Can I pay in halves? I asked. Half today, half next Friday? Gus nodded. I trust you. Trust is a sentence that lives in my chest a long time. I signed the estimate and wrote half on the top with the date. Ethan was quiet while I put the papers away. He didn't offer anything. He didn't do the rich man's dance. He let me keep my list. When I turned back, he was holding out a small square, a boarding pass stub. You dropped this at the airport, he said. I kept it by accident. I found it in my pocket last night. It had my name and the exact time we were not allowed on the plane. I smiled because a paper circle had closed. Thank you, I said. I keep everything. So I'm learning, he said. He looked like he wanted to say something else. He didn't. He went into the bay to talk to Gus about a truck that needed shocks. I left with a car that still made a noise but promised to try less. On the way home, I stopped at the library. Lily picked out 3 books about trains. I picked one about tenant rights and one about workplace investigations. I like knowing the names of forms before I see them. Monday came with a letter from the Office of Labor Standards. They had opened an investigation. An investigator named Paula Lee would visit the restaurant within 2 weeks. They would request the tipping policy, timekeeping records, and camera footage of the tip jar area. I read the letter twice and put it under work in the binder. I copied Paula's phone number to my notes and wrote, "Call after inspection." I went to work that afternoon and watched the manager be very neat with the cash. He posted the tip report for the first time in 2 months. He didn't look at me. I didn't look at him for long. I had tables to wipe, and water to pour, and a daughter to pick up, and a mother to check on. In the quiet between the lunch and the early dinner rush, I slipped into the alley and called the housing counselor to thank her. She said, "Teach the class next month?" Tenants listen to tenants. "I'm not a lawyer," I said. "You're a list," she said. "That's better?" I said yes, because sometimes you pay life back by telling the next person which line to stand in. That night, I found an email in my spam folder. Subject: Coffee? The sender field read, Ethan Cole. The body was 1 paragraph. Maya. If a person wanted to listen more and talk less, and to ask a few questions about paper and power, would you meet him in a place with good light and no microphones? If no, no hard feelings. If yes, I'll pick a time that doesn't touch your shifts or Lily's bedtime. E. I read it while the pasta boiled. I read it again after I drained the water and added butter, because butter is the first thing I learned to cook. I wrote back 1 sentence. Yes, public place, afternoon, 30 minutes. Bring your own list. He replied with a time. Tuesday, 2:30 p.m. A cafe with big windows and a name that sounded like it came with plants. I arranged for Jess to cover my hour. Jess said, "Tell him the plants are fake," and laughed her big laugh. I wrote a half-page list titled, If He Asks. It had 3 parts. How to build complaint channels workers trust. How to post policies where eyes go. How to make math visible. I put the list under the Work tab. I packed Lily's after-school snack. I laid out her purple hoodie and her white sneakers. I filled in the co-parenting app with pickup times like a person building a bridge. I slept at 10:18 p.m. on purpose. Tuesday at 2:30, the cafe was full of laptops and conversations that tried to sound important. Ethan sat at a table by the window without his cap. He looked like a man who had walked around the block before coming inside. I arrived with my tote and my binder and a pen. He stood when I reached the table, which is a sentence I have not been able to write about another man for a long time. 30 minutes, I said. We'll keep to it. Thank you for coming, he said. He didn't have a pitch deck. He didn't have a non-disclosure agreement. He had a notebook and a pen. I don't want to hire you or fix you, I said, because I like to clear the air early. I want to ask questions, he said, and listen. You're the only person who spoke to me like a person on the worst night, and then didn't ask for anything when you learned my last name. I shrugged. People are people. Titles are not armor. He wrote that down. He asked about paper. I told him how paper moves rooms. At work, I said, post the tip policy at eye level. Post the calculation. Let workers initial the report. Give them a number that isn't the manager's for complaints. If you need to change something, write it down and date it. Don't make people guess. Guessing is where bad math lives. He asked about power. I said, power is who can end a conversation. If the person who hears the complaint is the same person who profits from the thing being complained about, the complaint has nowhere to land. Build a second door. He wrote that down too. He asked where my revenge lives. In the stamp, I said. In the clerk's received. In the email that says your case is open. In the calendar reminder to follow up on day 10. He nodded. He looked at the binder. Does it have a name? It's just the binder, I said. But the tab labeled after is my favorite. He smiled. Do you want a job? He asked it softly and quickly, like he knew it might be the wrong question. No, I said. I don't want to work for a person who is currently a headline. I want a clean restaurant and a lease that tells the truth, and a car that doesn't sound like coins. He nodded. That makes sense. He closed the notebook. Then let me say thank you in another way. My lawyer is building a pro bono program for wage theft. He's looking for test cases where the documents are clean. You are clean. If you want the help, I'll ask him to call you. If you don't, I won't bring your name into any room. I thought for a full 10 seconds. Yes, I said, but on my terms. My name goes only where it needs to go. My coworkers' names go nowhere without their permission done, he said. He didn't ask for the names. He didn't ask for the binder. He finished his coffee and looked at his watch. Not the way men look when they want to leave, but the way men look when they honor the time they asked for. 30 minutes, he said. Thank you for them. He stood when I stood. I left with all my papers and a small new thing in my chest that felt like momentum without heat. 2 days later, an email landed at 9:04 a.m. Subject: Cole and Shankar, pro bono intake. The body was 3 lines and a phone number. I called on my break in the alley behind the restaurant, my apron still on, my hand holding my phone and my other hand holding a pen like a lever. The associate asked for facts. I gave him facts. Dates, times, amounts, names only where required. I didn't tell him how it felt to watch the jar empty incorrectly. I told him what the report said and where the numbers didn't match. We'll file a demand letter, he said. It will be quiet at first. If they fix it, we don't go loud. I like quiet, I said. Loud is for people with time. He laughed like he wasn't supposed to and then coughed like he remembered. We'll send you a draft. I hung up and breathed out a week I hadn't realized I was holding. When I walked back through the kitchen, Jess looked at my face and said, "Good news?" "Paper news," I said. She bumped my shoulder with hers. "That's the best kind." It was, until it wasn't. At 4:17 p.m., the manager called me into the office and shut the door. He liked shut doors. They make people small. I stayed standing. He slid a write-up across the desk. Tardiness, he said. 3 minutes late on Tuesday. I was on time, I said. I clocked in at 3:59. He tapped the paper. 3 minutes late. I slid my phone out and opened the photo of the time clock with my punch. 3:59 p.m. Tuesday. I turned the screen so he could see. This is petty, I said in a voice that didn't rise. And it is retaliation. He leaned back in his chair like men do when they want to look bigger. Careful, Maya. I am careful, I said. It's my nature. I put the phone away. I'd like to leave this office now. We both have work. I walked out without taking the paper. In the kitchen, Jess mouthed. You good? I nodded. Better than good, I said. Documented. At close, I pulled the tip summary again and slid it into my apron. He watched and didn't stop me because he knew now that a hand moving toward a printer camera is a hand moving toward a stamp later. At 8:20 the next morning, Paula from the Office of Labor Standards visited the restaurant. She showed her badge to the manager, who tried to talk about how busy we were. She didn't care. She asked for the policy and the past 3 months of tip records and access to the cameras at the counter. I watched through the pass as he shuffled, printed, and avoided eye contact with basic math. Paula took notes. She asked simple questions like a person who knows what happens when the numbers are wrong. She left in 45 minutes with a polite smile and a stack of paper in a blue folder that looked like justice doing errands. We worked lunch quiet and clean. After my shift, I went home and opened the binder. I added a new tab. Investigation. I slid Paula's card into the plastic sleeve. I wrote the date and the time and what she asked for and the length of her visit. Then I wrote a line that was true. Math is slower when someone watches. That afternoon, my phone buzzed. Unknown number. I let it ring, then checked the voicemail. A woman's voice, clipped and expensive. This is Cynthia Hart, board chair of Helios Logistics. Mr. Cole has been reaching out to current employees and non-employees about company matters. If he has contacted you in any way, please forward all correspondence to our counsel. I listened again. She had not said please the second time. She had said forward all correspondence, like she owned the air. I deleted the message. Ethan had not asked me about Helios. He had asked me about paper and power and tips. Even if he had asked about Helios, my phone is not a hallway for other people's arguments. At 6:12 p.m., Ethan texted. 2 things. 1. If you get a call from a woman who sounds like a lecture, ignore it. 2. My lawyer will send the draft letter tonight. I wrote back. Got the call. Ignored it. I don't forward my life to strangers. He replied with a single checkmark emoji. Simple. Clean. Then, can I ask you something not about me? Ask, I wrote. When you're afraid, where do you put it? I didn't answer for a minute. I looked at Lily drawing a giraffe with a crown. I looked at the sink full of dishes and the stack of coupons I would not use, and the rent receipt stamped paid. In a list, I wrote, fear is noise. A list is a filter. If it's on the list, it exists. If it exists, it has steps. Steps beat fear. He wrote, thank you, and then, no more texts tonight. It's Lily time. No man had ever sent me that sentence before. I put the phone face down and built a pillow fort. At 9:03 p.m., an email arrived from the law firm. Subject, demand, tip pool. The letter was 4 pages of simple words that meant big things. Return unlawfully withheld tips within 14 days. Provide accounting of all tip distributions for the past 12 months. Maintain and post written policy. Cease retaliation. The last page had signature lines waiting to be signed by people who like being important. I printed 2 copies. I slid one into the binder. I put the other on the table and wrote the date it would travel to the manager's desk. I don't like surprises. I like calendars. The next morning, I woke at 5:40 a.m. to a sound that wasn't my alarm. It was a knock. Firm, not angry. I put on a robe and looked through the peephole. Mr. Adler stood in the hall with a paper in his hand and a face trying to be neutral. I opened the door to the chain. Yes? We've updated our records, he said. We adjusted your account. The convenience fee has been removed. He held out the paper like a cat bringing a dead thing on the porch trying to make it a gift. Thank you, I said. Please slide it under the door. He did. He started to say something else, and then didn't. He walked away. I picked up the paper and filed it under rent, then texted the housing counselor a photo with 2 words. It worked. She sent back, told you so, and a smiley face that didn't feel cheap. At 8:01 a.m. after drop-off, I took the demand letter to the restaurant. I asked the opener to hand it to the manager. What is it? He asked. A stamp waiting to happen, I said. Then I went to the library and printed 3 more copies because I always lose count when I'm tired. At 10:17 a.m., my phone rang. The caller ID said, unknown. I let it go to voicemail. The message tried to sound kind. Maya, this is your manager. Let's be reasonable about this. You don't want to cause trouble for your coworkers. We can work this out if you stop sending things. I saved the message and emailed it to the associate with the subject line, Retaliation Attempt 1. He replied 3 words, Thank you. Saved. At 12:34 p.m., I got another news alert about Helios. The FBI had opened a preliminary inquiry into the CFO's expense accounts. The article said the inquiry came after internal documents surfaced, showing a pattern of personal charges. It did not say whose hands placed the documents where they could be seen. It did not need to. Paper moves rooms. I poured myself a glass of water and drank it standing by the sink like a person who just remembered the body also needs things. By Thursday, the manager stopped speaking to me. He started speaking around me, which is a common dialect for men who fear calendars. On Friday, Paula emailed to say the restaurant had 14 days to produce records or face penalties. She did not use the word penalties like a threat. She used it like a math term. On Saturday, Trevor arrived on time to pick up Lily. He had a new hat and a story about a new job he would start one day soon. He asked to borrow my car for the weekend. No, I said. He tried to laugh. We're friends, right? We are parents, I said. Friends are not required. The order is? He put his hands up like he was surrendering. You've changed. I keep lists, I said. That's the whole trick. He left with Lily and a list of snack ideas. He brought her back on time with chips anyway. I wrote on time in the log and chips in my notes. Keep everything. Sunday evening, the doorbell rang. I looked through the peephole and saw Ethan holding a paper grocery bag and a cautious smile. I opened the door because I don't hide from people who look me in the eye. I brought soup, he said, from the place near Gus's shop. He says it's the only soup that knows what it's doing. You didn't have to, I said. I wanted to, he said. And I'm good at container returns. He stood on the mat like a person who understands thresholds. 5 minutes? 5 minutes, I said. He stepped inside. He set the bag on the counter. He looked at the binder on the table with its labeled tabs and didn't make a joke about it like people do when they feel small near order. How is your storm? I asked. Clearing, he said. Slowly. Honestly, he handed me a small envelope. For Lily. A book voucher. Thank you, I said. She will pick the one with the giraffe. He nodded. That tracks. He looked like he wanted to tell me something and then decided to ask instead. Would you consider meeting with my lawyer and a journalist? Off the record. About wage theft. We're pushing for a series about quiet fraud. The reporter won't use your name or the restaurants without your consent. She needs a map. You have maps? I stood still and checked the list in my head that protects my time and my kid and my paycheck. Yes, I said, on my terms. Always, he said. He looked at the clock. He had already memorized the time he had and the time he didn't. 5 minutes, he said and stepped back toward the door. Thank you for telling me what paper can do. It's not magic, I said. It's just the weight of proof. And the right hands, he said. He stepped out into the hall. Good night, Maya. Good night, Ethan. I locked the door and put the soup into bowls and wrote journalist on a new line under after. I drew a little square next to it. I like to check things off. 2 days later, we met the reporter in a coffee shop with a chalkboard menu and a plant that was, in fact, real. Her name was Nina. She wore boots that had been places. She asked permission before she turned on her recorder. I said no to the recorder and yes to notes. She asked for a story. I didn't give her a story. I gave her a sequence. On this date, I said, the manager wrote breakage without a breakage. On this date, the report disappeared from the wall. On this date, I asked for it back. On this date, he added me to a double without notice. On this date, I filed. On this date, the investigator came. Nina's pen moved fast. Do you want revenge? She asked. No, I said. I want procedures that do not depend on a person's mood. That's not a quote I'll see on a billboard, she said, smiling. It's how people stop bleeding quietly, I said. Billboards are for car dealerships. Ethan sat and said nothing unless asked. He did not try to center himself in a room he could have bought twice. He paid for the coffee with cash and left the change in a jar without reading the slogan written on it in chalk. When we stood to leave, Nina said, You make it sound simple. It is simple, I said. It isn't easy. We walked outside into a Seattle that had decided to be bright for an hour. Ethan looked at me like a person looks at a compass when the needle calms. Thank you, he said. For the map. You're welcome, I said. For the soup. Anytime, he said. He looked across the street at a building where a tenant clinic held their Tuesday night sessions. You teach tonight? I do, I said. First time. Break a leg, he said. No, I said. I prefer paper. At 6 p.m., I stood in front of 15 tenants with folders and fear. I held up my binder. This is not a weapon, I said. It's a translation device. It turns your fear into steps. I wrote words on a whiteboard. Notice, statute, deadline. I showed them how to date a letter and send it 2 ways. I showed them where to write CC:city. I watched people breathe for the first time that day. After class, a woman with a stroller said, They told me they could raise rent because they painted the lobby. I said, They can't, and gave her the number and the words. She cried and laughed at the same time. I put a box of tissues on the table because airports taught me something about public crying. When I walked home, a message waited from Paula. We're issuing findings next week, she wrote. There will be restitution. I sat down on the curb under the streetlight and exhaled as if I had been holding my breath since the day I learned how to add. I did not cry. I don't cry when the math finally balances. I stand up. I go home. I set out 2 bowls for soup. At 9:58 p.m., the phone buzzed one more time. Ethan. Small update. The CFO's family time got canceled. Auditors found a drawer. The board is talking about culture like it's a new word. I hired a small office with 2 desks and a window that doesn't lie about the weather. I want to build something clean. No rush, no noise. Just clean. I wrote back, clean is quiet. Quiet is strong. Then I put the phone on the table face down and washed the bowls and put Lily's library books in her backpack and wrote one more line in the binder under after. If they don't give you a clean table, bring your own. The next morning, the restaurant door had a new sign. All tips are distributed nightly. Policy available upon request. I requested it. The policy was 1 page and full of small words. I took it home and put it in the binder. I texted Jess a photo. She sent back a string of heart emojis and then, "When do we get back pay?" I wrote, "Soon," because sometimes you are allowed to hope in words. Then I made a new list titled "If They Don't Pay" and a second one titled "If They Do." Both lists had steps. Steps beat fear. 2 weeks later, an envelope arrived from the Office of Labor Standards. It was fat. The letter on top said determination. The words under it said violation found and restitution required. The amount next to my name was not small. The amount next to all employees similarly situated made me sit down. I called Jess. She cried. I cried too, but quietly, like someone who knows crying is water leaving and you can't spill more than you can spare. I put the letter in the binder and drew a box next to collect. I checked the box, then put one finger on the paper and said thank you to no one in particular. Then I texted Ethan, "Paper works." He replied, "Always." That night, after Lily fell asleep with a giraffe sticker on her cheek, I sat at the table with a blank page. I wrote a title, "What to Do When They Say It's Nothing." I wrote steps, call, write, print, stamp, follow up, teach, eat soup, sleep, wake up, keep going. I don't know if it was a plan or a prayer. It felt like both. The next morning, I put it behind the tab labeled After. Then I made coffee and packed a snack and ironed my apron and walked into a restaurant that had math on the wall and found my manager suddenly very interested in transparency. He pulled me aside and tried a smile. "We're all on the same team, right?" he asked. "Now we are," I said. Restitution checks arrived in thin envelopes that looked like bills. The front said my name in machine type, and the return address said City of Seattle. I opened mine at the kitchen table while Lily colored a giraffe with wings. The amount made me sit down even though I was already sitting. It was not just my math. It was months of everyone's math. The line cooks, bussers, servers, passed back without speeches. I took a photo for my records, put the check under the Work tab, and wrote one sentence on the sticky I keep for important days. The numbers came home. Then I deposited the check by phone and watched the balance climb like a chest finally filling with air. I texted Jess. She called me instead and cried in the way that is laughter's cousin. "It's real," she said. "It is," I said. "Put a copy somewhere, no one can lose it." "You turned a jar into a ledger," she said. "We did," I said, "because I don't lift alone." By Friday, the restaurant had a posted policy with short words. A laminated copy lived by the time clock. Another lived at the host stand. The manager stopped hiding in his office. He started wearing a pin that said, "Ask me about tips," which is a sentence that would have made me laugh 2 months ago. He called a staff meeting in the dining room at 3:05 p.m. We stood in a circle with dish racks and bussing tubs like props in a play about work. He cleared his throat. "Moving forward, transparency," he said. "If you have questions, bring them to me." I raised my hand. "And to Paula at OLS," I said. "Her card is on the bulletin board." He paused, then nodded. "And to Paula," he said. He didn't like saying her name, but he liked fines less. At the end, he asked for team spirit. Jess held up her check and said, "This is spirit." We went back to our stations. We served lunch. We counted honestly. We went home. The family court set Trevor's hearing on a Tuesday at 9 a.m. The clerk's window opened at 8:30. I was there at 8:15 because I like quiet hallways before the machinery starts. I wore my plain black slacks and the blouse that makes me feel like my voice will land. I brought the order, the log, the calendar, the payment ledger, and the photo of the time clock because I want to live a life where I never arrive empty. The judge looked like she had no time for improv. Trevor wore a shirt with a wrinkled collar and a new hat. He started to talk about feelings. The judge asked for dates. I gave dates. The judge asked for missed payments. I slid the ledger forward. Is this accurate? She asked, looking at Trevor. He shifted. She makes it hard, he said. The order is clear, the judge said. Your feelings are not evidence. The child's needs are not a football schedule. She set wage garnishment. She ordered makeup time to be reasonable and arranged through the app. She told him to read the order and stop renegotiating by text. Then she stamped the paper in front of us with a sound I could feel in my ribs. That's the sound I live for, I told Jess later. A stamp? A fixed point, I said. Something you can build a week around. Gus called about the car the next day. Pump and belt done, he said. I threw in wipers because yours were an insult to rain. How much? I asked. He told me. It matched the number on the estimate. Half now? Half Friday? We shook on it, he said. We keep our word. I picked up the car and it drove like a promise kept. Not flashy, but steady all the way up the hill. The tenant class turned into a weekly thing. I showed people where to write the date and how to address 2 copies, and why CC City is a kind of quiet megaphone. I learned which landlords respond to calm letters and which ones need a complaint number to remember the law. Mr. Adler posted a new notice by the mailboxes. Rent increases will follow state and city requirements. Small words, big turn. He couldn't look me in the eye when we passed in the hall. He didn't have to. I'm not interested in his eyes. I'm interested in his compliance. Nina's first article in the series went live 2 Mondays later at 6 a.m. The headline said, Quiet Theft, How Wage Skimming Hides in Plain Sight. She didn't use my name. She used my sentences. Power is who can end a conversation. Math is slower when someone watches. Revenge is a stamp. She put them next to numbers, law, a short history of tip pooling, and 3 interviews with workers from other restaurants. She mentioned Paula's office. She printed the complaint link in bold. The comments were a parade of the internet trying to be terrible and sometimes succeeding. I didn't read them. I'm not in the business of letting strangers rent space in my chest. Nina texted, front page of Metro. Second piece on Tuesday I texted, thank you for letting paper speak. She wrote, thank you for making it. Ethan sent a link without words to a different story. Helio CFO resigns amid federal probe. Board acknowledges culture failures. A quote from Cynthia Hart mentioned best practices. 2 words that often mean, we stopped winging it. A paragraph deep in the piece mentioned anonymous internal documents that detailed charge patterns and internal warnings ignored. I thought about how paper is brave when it leaves drawers. I thought about the night at Gate B10 when a man held a tissue like it was permission to breathe and decided to be a person again. I typed, you don't need my congratulations. He typed back, I need to tell someone who understands the difference between noise and change. I typed, change shows up in policy and paychecks. He typed, working on both. Then, how's your mom? I sent a picture of my mother eating soup she'd seasoned herself. The sunflower tape had been replaced by a small scar already fading. Stubborn and healing, I wrote. He wrote, my favorite combination. A week later, he asked if I would sit in a room for an hour with 2 people, a labor lawyer and a woman who'd run HR at a warehouse where the night shift taught her how to listen. No mirrors, he wrote, no pitches. I want to outline a thing and see where it breaks. This is not a job ask. This is an hour borrow. I said yes, because an hour is a small currency, and I wanted to see if he would spend it carefully. The room had light that didn't lie, and a whiteboard with Northlight written at the top. It's a working name, he said. A new company? I asked. An old idea done without the part where people are an afterthought, he said. The lawyer asked me what a worker advisory panel should look like if the point is not theater. Small, rotating, paid, and protected. I said. No supervisors. Meetings on site, on the clock, with child care stipends. A written charter that says what gets decided in the room and what gets decided above the room. A second door. An ombuds who doesn't report to the person in the suit. Post results where people stand. If you can't post it, that's your first signal you like secrets too much. The HR woman asked what a complaint channel should do so people believe it. Respond, I said, with words that name the thing. Not, we take this seriously, but, we received your complaint about tip pooling on March 3rd. We requested X. We found Y. Here is the fix. Here is the date we will follow up. And post the number where the eyes are. If you hide the number, you told the truth about what you want. Ethan wrote everything down in clear block letters like a man translating a language he used to think he spoke. When the hour ended, he said, "What do we owe you for your brain?" "You owe me nothing," I said. "You owe the drivers you hire math they can see, and promises that survive sunlight." He nodded. "We will start small," he said. 2 warehouses, 12 trucks, posted math, advisory panel, ombuds. We will mess up in public and fix it in public. If you try to make it perfect, you will lie, I said. If you try to make it clean, you will make something people can trust. Clean, he said, like tasting the word again. He sent me a short email that night with a photo of the whiteboard and the line I said at the bottom. If they don't give you a clean table, bring your own. The next airport I saw was Phoenix, 3 months after Gate B10. This time we were flying home. My mother could climb stairs without stopping. Lily could read the word boarding and say it out loud like a spell. A woman near the window rocked a toddler and cried without moving her mouth. Her phone lay face down on her knee. I had tissues. I had learned, from a stranger who became a specific kind of friend, that passing a small thing across a row of chairs is a way of saying, "You are not the only one in this exact minute." I slid a packet toward her. "Thank you," she mouthed. She wiped her eyes, took a breath, then took another. She did not tell me her story. She didn't need to. The child fell asleep. The woman's shoulders went down half an inch. That is sometimes the whole project. Back in Seattle, the restaurant changed managers. A woman named Dawn took over. She'd run a breakfast place where the worst fights were about who got the last pancake order before close. She held a meeting on day 2 and said, "We will count together at the end of every shift." Then she showed us, slowly, how the math worked and where our initials went. She posted the policy and taped Paula's card next to the first aid kit. Jess said, "I might cry." Dawn said, "Cry later." For now, count, we laughed, and counted and went home with pockets that made sense. Trevor tried one more thing. He asked to trade weekends with 2 hours' notice. "No," I wrote in the app, 48 hours per order. He wrote a paragraph about how I was making him look bad to his new girlfriend. I replied, "This chat is for logistics." "See you at 5, I saved the conversation. He arrived on time 3 weekends in a row. He discovered that people show up more when the judge writes a schedule in ink. Nina's second piece focused on a warehouse in Kent, where a lost equipment fee took $20 every paycheck from people who never lost equipment. The third piece looked at convenience fees in leases and how they grow like mold in buildings where no one writes letters. The series ended with a small guide called Paper is Power. And I laughed because she stole my class title before I could make a flyer. She put the complaint links for wage theft, illegal fees, and tenant issues at the bottom of every page. People started showing up to the clinic with the article printed out and highlighted. Highlighted articles are my love language. Ethan's name disappeared from the worst headlines and appeared in small sidebars about a new project that centers clean operations. He invited me once to a ribbon cutting for a pilot warehouse. "No podium," he wrote. "No speeches." Just coffee and posted pay tables I brought Lily because trucks are magic when you are 5. She wore ear protection and stared at forklifts like they were whales. The pay tables were posted at the entrance. Inches tall font. Simple math. The kind of chart that tells the truth without favor. A poster by the break room said, "Advisory panel meets first Thursday, paid hour." Another said, "Ombuds, 1-800, independent." I watched a driver initial a tip sheet for a delivery bonus and take a photo of it for his phone. He looked like someone who had learned that paper is a bridge that can hold. Ethan stood against a wall with coffee, like a guest at his own event. When he saw me, he smiled the small, real smile. "You kept the list," he said. "You posted the math," I said. "We start as we mean to go," he said. "We defend it when it gets inconvenient." "That's the test," I said. Lily tugged my sleeve. "Can I see the big truck?" "If you hold my hand and we stay on the safe side of the line," I said. Ethan crouched to Lily's eye level and pointed to the yellow line on the concrete. "Lines are for safety," he said. "I love rules that keep people safe," she said. "Me too," he said. He looked up at me and the expression said more than his words ever would. I am trying to be the kind of person who deserves to be in the room. 2 months later, the law firm handling our demand sent a simple update: settlement achieved. Policy changes permanent. Back pay distributed. Retaliation prohibited under signed agreement. No confetti, no champagne, just a PDF with signatures and dates, and the company letterhead promising to behave. I printed it. I put it behind work. I put a sticky with the word "done" and checked it twice, because sometimes you get to. The tenant class did its own quiet revolution. People started to bring their neighbors. We moved into a bigger room with chairs that didn't squeak. A retired teacher named Marco brought snacks. A single dad named Leon brought a printer he found on Craigslist for $20 and ink he bought with a coupon. We printed letters. We walked to the blue box outside as a group and slid envelopes through the slot like prayers that speak statute. Mr. Adler sent me a holiday card with a generic snowman and the words, "Thank you for your engagement with the community." I put it in the trash and smiled because my engagement is the reason the card existed. On a gray Saturday, Ethan asked if we might take Lily to a community college open house where he was giving a small talk to logistics students. He called it Paper and Power. I came with my binder in my tote because that's my constant. He talked without slides in a classroom with the smell of dry erase markers. He told a story about losing a company and finding a way to build a better one. He said, "You'll be told chaos is normal. It isn't. Chaos is a choice people make when they benefit from blurred lines." He said, "Make the math visible. Listen to Night Shift. Write the rule before the crisis. If you can't post it, that's the problem." He didn't say my name, but he nodded once toward the back where I sat. It felt like a thank you that didn't try to use me as a prop. After, a student asked what to do when your boss says, "Be loyal." Ethan said, "Be loyal to the work and the people who lift it." Loyalty to a person is how you end up believing in a black box. The student wrote the sentence down. Careful block letters like a promise to future self. Trevor stabilized. Not because he changed who he is, but because the schedule and the garnishment made his choices less elastic. He stopped asking to borrow the car. He started showing up with fruit instead of chips. I recorded it like everything else, because sometimes improvement needs proof to stick. My mother returned to her garden with a straw hat and a box of marigold seeds. She asked about Ethan once, and I said, "He builds warehouses and tries to count honest." She said, "That's the kind of man who might learn to cook." I laughed. "He knows soup," I said. "We can teach him pasta." Nina's final article in the series closed with a scene at a coffee shop no one knows is where she met a single mom who was teaching a class about leases. The last paragraph said, "Justice isn't always a gavel. Sometimes it's a file folder and a stamp. Sometimes it's the sentence CC City. She emailed me a thank you that said, "Your sentences helped me write mine." I replied, "Your sentences helped me draw a crowd." One night in late summer, the sky turned the particular blue Seattle saves for days when it wants to apologize for the rain. Ethan and I sat on a bench by the water while Lily watched a busker make a balloon animal that suggested a dog, if you believed hard enough. We talked about small things. His mother's pie recipe that refuses to be written down like it's state secret. My mother's soup recipe that lives on a crumpled card with a grease stain and 3 misspelled words. He asked about my list called After. I read him the items: call, write, print, stamp, follow up, teach, eat soup, sleep, wake up, keep going. He smiled. "That's a life," he said. "It is," I said. We watched the ferry pull away, slow and steady, a moving piece of paper on blue water. He didn't try to take my hand or move closer in the performative way men do when they think benches and sunsets have rules. He let the evening be clean. When our flight got canceled again 6 months later, different airline, different gate, same blue light at 11:42 p.m., I didn't feel the old panic. Lily put her backpack down and sat like a traveler. My mother texted a sunflower. Across from us, a guy in a jacket too light for the hour stared at a 3-day notice on a phone screen and rubbed his eyes with his knuckle. I reached into my tote because I always carry a spare. I slid a sample letter across 2 seats and said, "Write the date. Keep a copy. CC the city." Small words. Big turn. He blinked like his eyes were adjusting to a new kind of light. "Thank you," he said. "You're welcome," I said. He didn't know who I was. He didn't need to. I don't call what happened to the manager or the CFO revenge. I didn't craft traps or perform speeches or light a match and walk away. I filed. I taught. I counted. I posted math where eyes go. I forwarded a resource to a man who had lost a room and found a way to build one with more doors. Paper moved rooms. People changed rooms. Peace moved in after the noise moved out. That's my whole miracle. At 7:15 a.m. now, my day starts with Lily's cereal and my coffee, and a quick check of the tabs that run my life. Rent, work, car, medical, school, after. The binder is not a cage. It's a map I drew for myself when the path was fog. I still carry tissues. I still believe in stamps. I still answer the phone from unknown numbers with my voice steady and my pen in my hand. When someone tries to tell me a thing is nothing, I ask for the date. I ask for the words in the lease. I ask where the math lives. I don't let fear choose my routes. I don't let chaos rent a room. If you want a romantic ending, here's the closest I'll give. On a Tuesday at 2:30 p.m., in a cafe with good light and plants that did not lie, a man who stood up when I arrived asked if Lily would like to see a warehouse where workers set the meeting agenda. We went. She wore ear protection. She loved the yellow line. He showed her how forklifts stop when a hand goes up and how posted maps keep people from getting lost. On the ride home, Lily said, "He uses rules to keep people safe." I said, "Yes." She said, "We like him." I said, "We like rules that keep people safe." She said, "And soup." "Especially soup," I said. When we got home, I opened the binder, slid in a new policy printout from a company that decided to start clean, and checked a small box next to a line I had written months ago. If they don't give you a clean table, bring your own. If you can, build a few. The last time I saw Gate B10, nobody was crying. The blue light still made everyone tired. But I looked around and saw so many lists, printed itineraries, boarding passes, lap-sized notebooks with boxes waiting to be checked. People carrying paper that told someone else, "Here are my facts." A small thing, a big turn. I held Lily's hand and we walked to our seats. The plane left on time. The flight attendant poured water that tasted like airplanes taste. I thought about the first night. The tissue. The man who said he lost everything. The way a single sentence can be a rope. I didn't know then that peace was a place I could choose and build with stamps and lists and a binder with tabs. I know now. That's my revenge, if you need that word. A quiet life I inhabit on purpose. No fireworks, no speeches, just clean math, posted rules, steady mornings, soup at night, a child who knows which line to stand on, and a handful of tissues for the next stranger who forgets for a minute that paper is power, and breath comes back when someone slides a small thing your way and says, "Start here."